Listen, most people think the first $10,000 is just a number. They see it as 10 stacks of $1,000 bills or maybe just a digital balance in a high yield savings account. They think if I had 10 grand, I'd just have more money. But they're wrong, dead wrong. Saving your first $10,000 isn't a math milestone. It's a psychological reset. It's the exact moment you stop playing defense against life. And finally, for the first time in your adult existence, you start playing offense. I'm Buck. I've spent decades watching the market go up, watching it go down, and more importantly, watching how people react to it. I've seen guys making six figures go broke trying to look rich, and I've seen quiet, reserved people build empires from nothing. The hardest part of wealth isn't the millions, it's the first 10,000. It's the manual labor phase of finance. Today, we aren't just talking about tips to save money. We're talking about how $10,000 fundamentally rewires your brain, kills the emergency panic, and why this specific amount is actually 1/3 of the way to your first million. Buckle up. This is going to be the most important 30 minutes of your financial life. Let's talk about the tragedy of the Tuesday. Think about the average person right now. According to recent stats, a shocking number of people can't handle a $400 or $1,000 surprise expense without going into debt. For them, life is a series of fragile glass plates spinning on sticks. If the transmission on their car slips on a Tuesday morning, it's not just a mechanical failure. It's a tragedy. It's a crisis that leads to a high-interest credit card balance at 24% interest. That debt then creates stress, which leads to poor performance at work, which leads to more stress. It's a cycle of low-level anxiety that most people breathe in like smog every single day. But when you have $10,000 sitting in a boring, liquid account, that broken car isn't a tragedy anymore. It's an inconvenience. Do you understand how powerful that shift is? When you move from crisis to inconvenience, your cortisol levels drop. Your brain suddenly has more bandwidth to think about the future because it's no longer consumed by surviving the present. You start walking a little taller, not because you're rich. $10,000 doesn't make you a millionaire, but because you're no longer one bad luck streak away from total collapse. Trust me, the air smells different when you aren't breathing in debt. You stop reacting to life, and you start navigating it. Why is the first $10,000 so hard? It's because it is 100% manual labor. In the world of investing, we talk about the snowball effect. But what they don't tell you is that at the beginning, there is no snowball. There's just you standing in the cold trying to pack a handful of slush together with your bare hands. Going from $0 to $1,000 is the hardest thing you'll ever do because you have no momentum. Every dollar you save feels like a sacrifice. You're saying no to the pizza, no to the new shoes, no to the streaming service. It feels like you're losing, but once you hit $10,000, the surprising math starts to kick in. If you put that $10,000 into a decent index fund or even a high-yield account, it starts to grow on its own. It's the first time in your life you'll see your money making its own money. It might only be $40 or $50 a month at first. That's not much, maybe a steak dinner or a tank of gas. But it's a proof of concept. You realize you aren't just a worker anymore. You've just hired your first employee, your money, and it's working for you 24/7 without complaining. This is the transition from being a laborer to being an owner. You're a capitalist in a blue Oxford shirt now. This is the part nobody talks about in finance books. $10,000 is your FU light fund. When you have $0 in the bank, you are a slave to your circumstances. You have to say yes to the toxic boss who screams at you. You have to say yes to the overtime that means you miss your kid's soccer game. You have to say yes to soul-crushing side hustles because you're desperate. $10,000 is what I call the buffer of dignity. It buys you roughly 3 to 6 months of life. Imagine walking into work knowing that if they fired you today, you wouldn't be homeless tomorrow. You'd be fine for months. That knowledge changes your body language. You become more assertive. You negotiate better. Ironically, having the money to quit often makes you a better, more relaxed employee, which leads to more promotions and more money. Wealth isn't about buying things. Wealth is about buying the right to choose. It's about the power to look at a bad deal and say, you know what? I'm good. Let's look at the 1/3 of the way to a million math. This sounds crazy, right? $10,000 is only 1% of a million, but in terms of effort and time, reaching $100,000 is the real battle. Charlie Munger, the late legend, used to say that the first $100,000 is a total B word. You have to do whatever it takes to get there. But here's the secret. The first $10,000 is the blueprint for the next $90,000. The discipline it took to save that first 10 grand is the exact same discipline you need for the next 90. The only difference is that for the next 90, you have momentum. The first $10,000 is 100% discipline. The next $90,000 is a mix of discipline and the compound interest you've already started to generate. Once you have $10,000, you've proven you can win the war against your own impulses. You've defeated the average person statistics. From here, it's just a matter of scaling. Now, I have to give you a warning. This is where most people fail. They hit $10,000 and they feel rich. They see that 5-figure balance and the first thing they think is, I've worked so hard, I deserve a reward. They go to the dealership. They take that $10,000, use it as a down payment for a $50,000 truck, and sign up for an $800 a month car payment trap. In one afternoon, they trade their freedom back for a 72-month prison sentence. They trade their buffer of dignity for a depreciating asset that smells like new car for 3 weeks and regret for 6 years. Don't be that guy. The goal isn't to have $10,000 so you can spend $10,000. The goal is to use that $10,000 as a seed. You don't eat the seed. You plant it so you can eventually own the whole orchard. If you want to build real wealth, the kind that lets you stay healthy and relaxed while everyone else is stressing, you have to survive the temptation of the first $10,000. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Or rather, the crabs in the bucket. When you start saving that first $10,000, something strange happens. You expect the world to applaud you, right? You think your friends will be proud, but instead, you'll start noticing a weird tension. You're at dinner, and everyone wants to order another round of $15 cocktails. You decide to stick with water, or maybe just one drink because you're focused on your goal. Suddenly, you're the boring one. You're the cheap guy. Here's the buck truth. Most people are deeply uncomfortable with your discipline because it shines a giant, blinding spotlight on their own lack of it. We live in a culture designed to keep you at zero. The ads, the social media feeds, the treat yourself mentality. It's all a trap to make sure your paycheck goes directly from your employer's bank account to a billionaire's pocket, with you as the middleman. When you hit $10,000, you've effectively stepped out of the crab bucket. You aren't playing the same game as your friends anymore. They are playing who can look the richest while having the least, and you're playing who can actually be free. You have to be okay with being the boring friend for a while, because while they are stressing over a $500 car repair in 3 years, you'll be looking at your portfolio deciding which country you want to visit for a month. Discipline is lonely at first, but the view from the finish line is crowded with people who wish they had started when you did. People ask me all the time, Buck, how do I actually get to that first 10,000 without losing my mind? It's not about willpower. Willpower is for people who haven't built a system. If you have to decide to save money every month, you've already lost. Your brain will always find a good reason to spend it. A wedding, a sale, a bad week at work. There's always something. I use what I call the payday routine. It's a 3-step process that takes all the decision-making out of your hands. Step 1. The invisible cut. You have to pay yourself first, not if there's money left over. There is never money left over. The second that paycheck hits your account, or better yet, before it even leaves your payroll, 10%, 15%, or 20% needs to vanish into a separate account. If you never see it, you don't miss it. You learn to live on the remaining 80%. That's how you build a foundation without feeling the manual labor of it every day. Step 2. The high-yield fortress. That first $10,000 shouldn't be in your regular checking account. It's too easy to swipe a card and accidentally spend your emergency fund on a 75-inch TV. Move it to a high-yield savings account, HYSA, at a completely different bank. Make it take 2 days to transfer the money back. That friction is your best friend. It stops impulsive decisions. Step 3. The buck budget. I don't believe in counting every penny. It's exhausting and it makes you hate your life. Instead, automate your bills, automate your savings, and whatever's left in your checking account, that's your guilt-free spending. If you want to buy a ridiculous $8 coffee, go for it, because you already paid your future self. This is how you stay relaxed while building wealth. You aren't fighting yourself, you're just following a script. So you've got the discipline. You're doing the payday routine. The money is stacking up. Now, where does it go? A lot of people get that first $1,000 or $5,000 and they want to gamble it. They want the hot stock tip, the latest crypto coin with a dog on it, or some secret option strategy they saw on TikTok. Stop. If you have less than $10,000, your biggest investment isn't the stock market, it's your liquidity. The smartest order looks like this: the Starter Emergency Fund. Get $2,000 to $3,000 into that high-yield account immediately. This is your armor. It stops you from ever needing a credit card again. The high-interest debt kill shot. If you have credit card debt at 20% or 25% interest, you aren't investing until that is gone. Paying off a 25% credit card is the same as getting a guaranteed 25% return on your money. You won't find that anywhere else in the world. The full $10,000 foundation. Once the bad debt is dead, fill that account until it hits $10,000. Only after you have that $10,000 buffer of dignity do you start looking at index funds or the S&P 500. Why? Because if the market crashes tomorrow and you lose your job, you won't be forced to sell your stocks at a loss just to pay rent. The $10,000 is the insurance policy for your future investments. It allows you to be a long-term investor instead of a panic seller. Boring? Yes. Effective? Absolutely. I'd rather be a boring guy with 10 grand than a flashy guy with a maxed out credit card and a crypto portfolio that just went to zero. This is the psychological secret that the Average Money Stats videos never mention. There is a concept in psychology called cognitive load. Your brain only has a certain amount of processing power every day. When you are constantly worrying about rent or checking your bank balance before you buy groceries, you are using up about 20% of your IQ just on survival stress. Studies have shown that being in a state of financial scarcity actually lowers your functional IQ by up to 13 points. You literally become less smart because your brain is running a background program called How Do I Not Go Broke? When you save that first $10,000, you shut that program down. Suddenly, you have more mental RAM available. You perform better at work. You notice new opportunities. You have the patience to learn a new skill. You aren't smarter than you were before, but you finally have access to your full brain. This is the hidden advantage of the wealthy. They aren't necessarily geniuses. They just aren't distracted by the noise of survival. Reaching $10,000 is like giving your brain an SSD upgrade. Everything runs faster, smoother, and with less heat. Now, I want to let you in on a secret that most get-rich-quick gurus will never tell you. Reaching that first $10,000 is like building a rocket. It's heavy, it's expensive, and 90% of the fuel is burned just getting off the launch pad. But once you hit $10,000, you've reached low Earth orbit. The jump from $10,000 to $100,000 feels completely different than the jump from 0 to 10. Why? Because you finally have momentum. When you were at 0, every dollar came from your sweat. At $10,000, your money is starting to pull its own weight. If you keep the same payday routine we talked about, you'll notice that the second $10,000 comes faster than the first. The third comes even faster. By the time you hit $50,000, the compound interest is doing more work than your overtime shifts. You've stopped being the engine and started being the pilot. Most people quit at $3,000 because they don't see the curve yet. They think, I've sacrificed so much and I only have 3 grand? This isn't working. They don't realize they are inches away from the point where the math takes over. If you can survive the manual labor of the first $10,000, the path to $100,000 is just a matter of staying out of your own way. There is a massive internal shift that happens when you cross the 5-figure mark. It's an identity shift. Before $10,000, you likely viewed yourself as a payer. You paid the landlord, you paid the bank, you paid the grocery store. You were the source that everyone else tapped into. After $10,000, you start viewing yourself as an owner. When you see a company like Apple or Coca-Cola releasing a new product, you don't just think, should I buy that? You think, how is this going to affect my dividends? This shift in identity is your greatest defense against the car payment trap. A payer sees a $10,000 balance and sees a down payment for a truck. An owner sees a $10,000 balance and sees 10,000 soldiers that are out in the world capturing more territory for his future. You start to value your net worth milestones more than your stuff. You realize that a $50,000 car parked in the driveway of a rented house isn't success. It's a liability in a shiny wrapper. Success is the quiet confidence of knowing you could walk away from your job tomorrow and be fine for a year. That's the buck way of living. Let's talk about the math that shocks everyone. If your goal is to reach $1 million, you'd think $100,000 is only 10% of the way there. In terms of time and effort, that is completely wrong. Because of the power of compound interest, reaching your first $100,000 is actually 1/3 of the way to $1 million in terms of time. Think about that. The most brutal, soul-crushing part of the journey is that first $100,000. But once you conquer that hill, the momentum of that money working 24/7 means the journey to the million is mostly just waiting and not doing anything stupid. And it all starts with the first $10,000. If you haven't hit 10,000 yet, you aren't just 1% of the way to $1 million. You are building the foundation for the entire structure. Without that first 10,000, the $1 million is a fantasy. With it, the $1 million is an eventual mathematical certainty, as long as you stay calm and stay invested. I'll leave you with this. Money is a great servant, but a terrible master. The reason I wear this simple blue shirt, and the reason I don't care about having the flashiest car on the block, is because I've bought something much more expensive: peace of mind. The average person is stressed. They are tired. They are fighting with their spouse about bills. They are one bad Tuesday away from a breakdown. I don't want that for you. Your first $10,000 isn't just money. It's your first step toward autonomy. It's the ability to spend your time how you want, with who you want, for as long as you want. Fold your sleeves up. Do the manual labor. Skip the things that are no longer worth your money. Build your buffer of dignity and never look back. The first $10,000 is the hardest, but I promise you, the man you become on the journey to saving it is worth far more than the money itself. If you're ready to stop playing defense and start building your foundation, hit that like button so I know you're with me. And if you want to see exactly how I manage my money every single time I get paid, the payday routine that got me to my first $100,000, check out this video right here. I'm Buck. Stay calm, stay invested. I'll see you in the next one.